Well, hello, I'm Robert Schrader, and this is a video that my student put together about 15 years ago. And this is just a little bit of a history of the school and the program that we offer here at Central Tech, the plumbing program. They also have electrical shops and carpentry shops, and so it's a real tech school. Yeah, so there I am, holding my large double-double with milk. And so this is what they're doing. So these are all high school students, and they are working on, actually at that part, three-piece washrooms. Sometimes we just mix it up. We put in a laundry tub, floor drains, toilets, bathtubs. He's a fully licensed plumber. And his cousin is actually coming into the program. So I saw him during the parent-teacher interviews. So yeah, so and the big thing about it is that it's all hands-on. So everything is working. We got hot water tanks. Bathtubs, running water, all the drains. Yeah. So we have our plumbing jackets. And the program's been around for a very, very long time. So that's some of the projects that they start off with. They're basically level 1 and a little bit of level 2 knowledge. They start solder away. They learn to cut and thread. And then as they progress, and I teach them more on the theory side, then they start moving into the drains and water pipe and venting. So what kind of throws people off is that these are high school students. These are like 16, 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of that stuff, except that bathtub there, that's actually from my jobs. So, a lot of times I change the washrooms and simply because they don't like the color anymore. And I'm going, does it work? Yeah. Well, yeah, okay, there we go. So I yanked that thing in the back of my truck and brought it to the school. So I got 2 whirlpools and shower valves and things like that. We've been very fortunate, too, in our program that we get a lot of donations. So we had American Standard, Moen, Dahl, and then we just basically produce. So here's some of the theory. Probably looking at a little bit of wet venting there.
It's all about venting.
All about venting. Yeah, everybody knows about water pipes and drains, but then they forget everything about venting.
Yeah.
The one thing, too, that I love about this program or in the school is the fact that we try to have fun. So, it's a hands-on thing. We do take it seriously, but we have a little bit of fun. So you can see here some of the students are kind of playing around with the water there. And a lot of the students have had very much success in the field. So a lot of them are licensed right now. And also another thing, too, that we do is, that's actually on top of the Central Tech, on top of the roof.
So that's that year's class?
Yeah. So we try to, I have these pictures going all the way around, like the board. I try to have a family type feel to it. So a lot of students come back, and first thing they do is they look at the board, they look at the pictures, their family photos and stuff like that. There's my little basketball hoop. We typically play that on Fridays. Here's Phil from Rigid, and then he comes in. Pipe and tool supply, they've also done a great job.
A lot of ABS, man.
So that's the skills competition. So we've competed in the Canadians, and we've competed for the Ontario Skills Championships. And in the last 15 years, our class, have won 13 golds and 2 silvers.
Wow.
So needless to say, I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
So I will say that this is probably the best program in Toronto, and especially or Ontario or even in Canada.
It's well respected. Everyone knows of it. If you're in the trades, you know exactly who Central Tech is or where Central Tech is. I'm almost beginning to feel like you're the John Wooden of plumbing here. Is that what's going on? It seems like that.
Well, it's we've had a lot of, like I said, here's the awards that they get. We had scholarship. Actually, Thomas from Dahl, we have a scholarship going on with him. So there's an award for the best student. And like I said, we have like an 85% success rate. A lot of students have gone into the plumbing field. And I was saying earlier that you can see here's the
graduation.
So, yeah.
It's a beautiful school.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Inside and out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very, very proud of my students.
That's an amazing video.
Yeah, very proud. We use it for promotion. And I am very proud of my students. So, and even now, we have a lot of students that have now their own company. And what they do is they give me a call and they say, I could use a couple of students. So that's
So
like
you
that
stay in
full
touch with
return.
them. Yeah.
I've handed out I have hundreds of students that have my cell number. I never turn my number, my cell phone off. It's always on. So a lot of times my students will call me on the weekend, or if they're doing a little project on the side, first time. And so if they can't handle it, then basically what we can FaceTime, which I've done before. Or let's say they want to hook up a laundry tub at a relative's house, we'll actually do the project in the classroom. So I'll show them all the little tricks of the trades, things to look out for, things to do, what things to look out for, to do and not do. And then once they practice, they go home. And my only thing I want is my large double-double with milk. So that's all I want. That's the payment, is coming back with a large double-double with milk.
100 years. It's been around for 100 years.
Yeah, 105 now.
105 now, right?
Actually, well, look at that.
Oh, look at that.
105.
Wow.
105, 109. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been around for a long time, and it's like I said, it's a tech school. I came across some slides and photos of the school when it was first built, and it took me like a couple months, but I managed to scan every single photo, and we presented it, at the anniversary, and so it's quite interesting. It has a big school, but like I said, it's a tech school. We have an incredible electrical program, carpentry program. All of the teachers are licensed when it comes to the trades, like an auto and things like that. So a lot of students have gone through that school for a very, very long time.
And they're very successful.
A lot of them are
and they're
very
running
successful.
really successful businesses.
Yeah.
And they've been hiring through that school.
Yeah.
Let me do a quick shout out to Ty, Nickel General Contracting. I'm wearing his tee today on today's show.
Yeah.
Well, welcome
nice
to the show. Welcome back, Robert. It's
Thank
good to have you back, because I know that I wanted to have this conversation. We haven't had this conversation before, and it's a shame that you guys are basically the pinnacle of Toronto when it comes to tech, and we should have more. Shouldn't we have more?
Yeah, we should have more. I went back to my old high school, and I would say that a lot of them turned into computer labs and things like that. So we should have more trades. The problem, I will say, is that not a lot of students are going into the trades.
Do you catch yourself, like when you're teaching the class, do you catch yourself, this is a 16-year-old individual, and you're speaking to them about this trade and the works that's ahead of them, right? Yeah. And just realize that they're probably grasping it pretty quickly, like easily too.
Well, I'll tell my students that, at this point, when you're in grade 11 and grade 12, you're sort of narrowing down that streamline, and they're sort of saying, I'd like to go into the trades, but I'm not 100% sure. And we have courses where you do, let's say, 9 weeks of electrical, 9 weeks of plumbing, 9 weeks of carpentry. And then when they hit grade 11, grade 12, they can kind of focus a little bit more on that. But the problem is that, we should have more students going into the trades.
You should.
And
what's your enrollment like annually? Like, how many kids you got coming through?
Well, in my class or in the school?
In the class.
In my class, we're averaging around 20.
Okay.
So 20, 30, something like that. Depends on how many classes are running.
In its heyday, how many kids were coming through?
Well, in the heyday, let's put it this way. In the heyday, the school's capacity is well over 2,000.
And what are we now?
And right now, I think Central Tech is at maybe 1,200, 1,300, right? So it's not because of the school. It's just because they don't want to travel as far, or it's more of a tech school. And but I find one of the biggest is underestimating the talent of these students. I remember when I went to the first skills competition. And I'm a brand new teacher, and I thought, okay, well, let's go here and we do that. And I'm looking around. And I remember the food section, when they're making pastries and cakes, and I'm looking at this, going, these are high school students? Holy moly! So I think a lot of the people don't realize that. When the kid starts focusing, They're actually really good.
There's talent there.
There's a lot of talent there.
Yeah.
So I remember the underestimate, and then sometimes they're giving a lot of options, and the parents. I will say parents are a big thing. A lot of the parents don't want their kids to go into the trades.
That was my question too. When you start hearing the students saying, "I'm not sure if I want to get into trades."
Yeah.
Is it because they don't know which trade to get into, or they don't want to disappoint their parents?
Yes.
Which have the mindset of, I don't want you to be a tradesperson. I want you to be somebody else, some other career.
Absolutely.
It's the parent, huh?
It is the parent.
Yeah.
I've had, being a plumber, let's say, is not the sexy word.
I don't argue that.
And yet, when I meet these parents, they're all saying, "Oh, I needed a plumber, and plumbers get paid so much, and this and that." I said, "Well, why not go into the trades?" But I've actually had students, because of the OYAP program, the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. That's one of the ones that I taught or teach, is that I've had it where you interview the students, I accept them, great, going in, and then all of a sudden, so it's September, and said, "Oh, where's little Johnny?" And then I make a phone call saying, school has started, and he said, "Oh, no, I can't. My parents don't want me to go take this course, and so I'm off to university."
To study.
And that's what I said. To study what, right?
To party, basically. To spend money and party.
Yes.
Socialize.
Socialize, but again, the parents are saying, "Well, we don't want the kids, the like plumber. That's just not right? We want the kids to go off to university and they all become doctors and lawyers," which is not wrong. But my little point is the fact that, like, being a tradesperson, I just showed you a pay stub of one of my former
students. And I was
students.
just about to ask you. I mean, it was heavy, that pay stub.
Yeah.
It was heavy. Yeah. And I want you, because we get a lot of kids listening to the show, but we also get homeowners listening to the show too.
Right.
You got a kid in your school. From the time they start, from the time they get out and they graduate, give me the timeline. From the time they become a licensed plumber to potentially a master plumber to operating a business. If they're in their teens in their high school years, they get out of high school, what, 18?
Yeah, about 18 years
18 years old, right? They've got your course education, which is really good to a lot of other kind of pre-apprenticeship sort of programs out there in the market right now. And now they start getting from where? Now they're 18 years old, they get onto a job site, so to speak.
Well, so what we basically do is we open up the doors.
Doors.
We put, the thing about co-op is that in a lot of tradespeople, they don't want dead weight, right? I mean, when we do our little sales pitch and we say, "Okay, we really could use you taking on one of our students," they said, "Yeah, it's too much trouble." But then when I mentioned the fact that, well, these students are roughing in 3-piece washrooms.
Yeah.
They've got level 1 experience. Yeah. And even I get into the water pipe, which is on level 2 side. They're hands-on. They're not dead weight. So if you go tell them to go get a 90 or 45 or a TY, they know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And, at first, yes, they don't do anything because there's a little bit of, well, let's just see what this kid can do. But it doesn't take long that all of a sudden, my students are actually working, and they're working in doing a small little project. And then what happens is that the student gets hired on. Some of the hours can go towards that $9,000. It's because it's 9,000 hours.
9,000 hours.
So they break it up into 5 years.
But they're being paid.
Yeah, you get paid to learn.
Yeah, so
what a concept.
Yeah, which is you're being paid. What's the average rate nowadays that the compensation is for a kid coming out of high school getting into the
20 something, like $23.
So you're making more than your age right now, which is great. Now you work and you hustle, you prove yourself.
Right.
You get to being licensed plumber now. Yeah. You've done your 9,000 hours.
Yeah.
What are you being compensated at the end of 9,000 hours?
Well, it depends if it's a union or non-union, but I will tell you that probably around 100,000. That's being conservative.
And so you can get your 9,000 hours probably by the time you're 25, 6?
20. I had one student, Eric. He got, I think he's right before his 24th birthday. I got mine when I was 24. So you can't rush it. I mean, that 9,000 hours.
You have to. There's a reason.
Yeah, there's a maximum of let's say, I think it's 43 or 44 hours that can go towards your apprenticeship.
Yeah.
But if you're working 60, you get paid for 60.
Yeah.
Right. So they can't, and then you have 3 times you got to go to school. So once you do all that, yeah, you're good as gold.
You're making six figures.
Yeah.
You're in your mid-20s.
Yeah.
And then you're on your way to becoming a master license if you want to.
Yeah, they don't have the masters anymore.
They don't do it anymore?
They don't do it anymore.
Okay.
It's more like a contractor's license.
Okay.
But I got my master's. I had to go back to school, and that exam
Challenge
was
it?
huge.
It was just okay, you're challenging it.
So, and
but I mean, that's the argument for the parents. Like, you got a kid, 25, making that money.
Yeah.
The education that was associated with that, he was or she was paid to learn this trade.
Yeah.
CMPX, Canada's largest HVACR and plumbing trade show. It's just around the corner. It's happening in the South Building of the Metro Toronto Convention Centre from March 20th to the 22nd, 2024. And it's the ultimate industry showcase of everything new in HVACR and plumbing. I'll be there broadcasting live from the trade show floor and taking it all in during 3 action-packed days. Visit www.cmpxshow.com for all the details, and don't forget to register for your free all-access pass using promo code CONSTRUCTIONLIFE.
So I got a lot of parents during open house, and one of the very first things I talk about is the money.
And what's their response? Like, what? How do they?
It's all great. This is incredible. Yes, it's unbelievable how much plumbers are making, and it's a great field. But then at the end of the day,
still a dirty job.
It's still a dirty job, right? So I've been trying to not brainwash, but I've been promoting the trades, and again, not just plumbing, but electrical and carpentry and auto, and like it is a field day. The one thing I also love, and I also will say it's the money, but it's not about the money, okay? Because it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I'm a kind of a perfect example of where I work for a plumbing company, Lamper Plumbing. Started my apprenticeship. I was a plumber there for a few years, and then I got a little bit bored. I wanted to try something different, and so I opened up my own plumbing company. So I did that for a number of years, for over 20 years.
Oh.
And then when I hit 40, I then said, well, I'd like to go into maybe some teaching. My bones were sore. I had 2 knee surgeries, my back, my shoulder. I was 41 and felt like I was 81.
Yeah.
And what else can I do? I said, well, let's teach. So my brother-in-law's a teacher, and we made some phone calls, and they had a thing called letter permission, where they just kind of give you the keys and say, okay, you know the trades, but now you have to apply to schools, universities to become a teacher. Which I did, and I went to Queen's University for 2 summers and throughout the year.
At 41?
At 41, yeah. So it was, I remember sitting there going,
that's an education.
Never in a million years I think I was going to go to university.
When I got out, I got out.
Oh, I was, and even now, me being a teacher, how fast I was running out that door in grade 13. I said, I'm never coming back to a high school, and what am I doing? I go back, I've been going back for 18 years now.
Yeah, but now you've been shaping the industry, right? You've been contributing to shaping the industry.
Yeah. So it's been very, very rewarding. I on a personal note, I love it when my students come back. I love it when they come back. They bring my large double with milk. And in many ways, and I just have one student. Actually, I have 2 students. They'll be coming in pretty soon, hopefully. And I have them talk to my students, my current students. So and again, it's not just about the plumbing and the theory, but being an apprentice is not easy. Let's put it that way.
It's a tough gig.
It is a very tough gig. I mean,
you
have
take
to,
a lot.
You have to, it's not just on the physical side, but mentally.
Mm-hmm.
You have to sacrifice. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that everything stops. If you got to work on the weekends, you work evenings, the money is good, but it's challenging, and especially when you're going to school, because a lot of people take the hands-on courses because they're not necessarily great at sitting down and studying, which I was one of them. It's very, very difficult. So and then near the later stages, I think I saw something like only 36% of apprentices ever get their license.
It's that low, huh?
It's that low, yeah. So because it's a challenge. There's a lot of people going through level 1, but then as time goes on.
Do you think it's because they don't get paired up with the right mentor after they leave you, or after they get into the industry, kind of thing?
Well, a lot of times there's a lot of jumping around. I was one of the rare ones that I stayed my
jumping
entire...
around for what reason? Money?
Well, I think it's a combination of the apprentices themselves. Sometimes it could be the work. Sometimes they want to do something a little bit different. Sometimes the employers don't have work. Like during the COVID,
Can't keep them busy.
Although a lot of my students were still working during COVID, but things slowed down. That's without question, right? So, and then you have to prove yourself. So that's was one.
You got to be fast on the fly too. It's because as an apprentice, the employer or the journey is testing you.
Yeah.
And so they're always asking questions and they're always putting you into situations, and you've got to be on the fly to answer that question or solve that problem. And that is a lot of pressure for a kid in a real job site environment.
It is basically, I call it a 5-year job interview.
Yeah, it is.
Because if you think you're become complacent, you're finished.
No, you got to get ready to boogie. Yeah.
And look for us.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher. I don't sit back and just say, I got seniority and all. No, I got to do something new. I'm always trying to push myself because, it's like I said, even now I have to kind of prove myself. And I got a whole class full of students that are looking at me. And, if I walk in there and okay, whatever, or here's some books, or no, I don't want to do that. I got to keep these students engaged.
Yeah.
I mean, I got, all day I got to keep these teenagers engaged and
That's a
focused.
tough task.
There are days.
Yeah.
There are days. But again, I'm very fortunate that I'm talking about, plumbing or something that they're looking forward to, right? So the engagement is a little bit more focused than, grade 9 English and learning King Lear or something like that, right? It's a little bit, and again, I try to make it more fun for the students, right?
Do you ever ask the students why they chose plumbing? Why are they here?
I think the number one answer is, well, I'm mostly hands-on. And then a lot of times, I'll ask that question is that, they'll have a relative that's gone into the trades.
Okay.
Right. So they had a relative, like an uncle or something like that. And that's how they got into it. And I guess the uncle or the father, like my father, Wolfgang, he was a plumber. And I started work when I was like 12, helping, in the truck and getting material and all that. So I was sort of kind of, going into the yeah. So when I hit grade 13, I was the only one to go into the trades. So all of my classmates in grade 13 went off to university. So
and you were the only, and that was back then.
That was in 1983.
Wow.
Something like that. 83 is when I graduated. Something like that.
That would have been heyday. That would have been a lot of mostly immigrants, I guess, coming in. They were jumping into trades at that point.
It was mostly the European immigrants.
Yeah,
so
that's what's coming in.
I had from Yugoslavia, my father German, Scotland, Ireland, Portuguese at time. Like it was just the European trades, right?
Yeah. Not many Canadians.
No, not that I remember.
Not that time, no.
But
you're getting them now, which is different.
Yeah, now it's different because we have students from Iran, Iraq,
everywhere
from all, and it doesn't really matter. Like
no.
It doesn't really matter what country. All they want to know is, can you do the job, right?
Out of all the specialties there, Robert, who's leading the pack? Am I fair to guess automotive?
Who's leading the pack?
Yeah, how many, most kids going in? Because we know that trades-wise, there isn't as many kids that you would want. You would want to see more kids coming in. But out of the plumbing, the electrical, carpentry, automotive, who's actually got the bigger classes that are people choosing trade-wise?
I would say probably the one class that consistently sells as electrical.
Electrical.
Yeah. The teacher there is really, really good. He's got a great reputation. And one thing I've learned from the past from other teachers is that, ours is elective, right?
Okay.
Right. So we have to basically promote. And we promote throughout with the students. In other words, students are talking to each other.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, we have pictures. You see my classroom. I've got everything decorated. But really, it's the word of the mouth of students that gets your program going. So if you do very well and you have success, the word gets out, and then your classes are full. So to answer your question, I would say probably electrical. Now, auto. used to be really, really big. But I think with all these hybrid cars and
Working on cars
you
today,
know,
you might as well go to electrical.
yeah, I mean, I have a Toyota RAV4 Limited hybrid, and I open up the hood and I'm going,
I'm not touching any
I
of this.
have no idea.
Yeah,
You know, I think that's where the windshield wiper fluid goes, but other than that, I have no idea. Right? So in the old days, auto used to be a really big thing. There were a lot of teachers and a lot of classes. But again, just the enrollment's gone down, and so we're sort of even itself out. So, but plumbing's always been really good. Carpentry's been really good. So we got cosmetology, hospitality, in it, and all of it goes directly into the trades. So,
And what's the school doing? I mean, I guess they're seeing the slowdown as well too, and it's kind of affecting everybody at that school. Like, I'm trying to figure out, I'm not going to be waiting for the government to help us out to do this, right? So I think it's the industry has to help us out to do this, right?
and that's why I have
You encourage them to come back.
Yeah. So I encourage that. Actually, I go out, like we were talking earlier. How did I know about Thomas?
Yeah.
And I met him at the CMX show, and I then networked with Phil, and I got from Rigid and Ralph Jenkins, and I've had a lot of people coming in from Moen and American Standard. They do presentations, and really the thing is that I get donations. They do a presentation, in front of my students, or we go out and do a field trip.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple of years ago, we did a field trip to Next Plumbing Supply.
Yeah.
And what did I see behind the counter? One of my former students.
Really?
Yeah, I think his name's David. And this was at the Next Supply on Highway 7 there.
Okay.
And he, I remember the company that I set him up with, and he goes, I just like going to one place. So he remembers the field trip that I took him on many moons ago, and he remembered that, and he ended up getting a job, and now he's behind the counter. And he's just loving it. So, yeah, I actually met one of my former students.
Well, he's a huge part of the industry because we go in there and we're looking for supplies and we want him to rock and roll and get us our supplies or have it all ready for us, right?
Yeah.
So it can get shipped out. Yeah. It's important.
So we go out on field trips because when I was a kid, I loved field trips.
That was the best part of school.
Oh, yeah, going on a field trip. And then I have industry coming in and they do a nice presentation. And like I said, it's a trade-off because they give us donations. I use all of their material in my classroom. And then when they go out, they're exposed to, let's say, doll products. Now, and I will tell you, not because Thomas and me are very good friends, but I remember the material, and I always remember doll being a high standard.
Yep.
It was not I go to the dollar store and get this shut off. No, the standard is very.
You installed it once.
Yeah.
That's how simple it was, right?
And then I got Rigid. I remember my Rigid tools. I still have my original Rigid cutters. I had my father's Rigid cutters. And then I used Milwaukee and Rigid. And so me becoming a teacher, I kind of brought all my experience and things I like and the good quality and all that. So that's in my classroom.
Well, CMPX is coming up. Are you encouraging the kids to consider going to it? Yeah,
they go every year.
Yeah, really, huh?
We go every year. Yeah.
Well, we're going to be there. We're going to be at the doll booth. So we're going to we're going to be interviewing plumbers. And then I think we're on the Thursday. And then he's got plumbers actually doing demonstrations on the Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm also going to be at the social hub. So I'm part of the social hub that they've got at CMPX there. There's three other podcasters that are going to be there. Yeah. So we're going to be there. I'm bringing in 3 plumbers to interview on the day there. So I'm looking forward to that. But that's a great show for any kid that are trying to consider, get into plumbing, check it out, learn a few things. You'll bump into a bunch of people that I'm sure that brings me to my next point about, are the kids all over social these days when it comes to, they're all over it, right?
Yeah. And actually the last show, a whole bunch of my students came up to Thomas. Actually, Thomas can. I think I got some pictures on my phone. But all of a sudden, they came up and Thomas remembered them. Yeah. So they were like 4th-year apprentices or plumbers now, and they're all going up to Thomas, and they'll see the people that I had coming into the classroom, And, Thomas just eats that up. He absolutely loves it.
It's a small, nice world. It's as simple as that. Everybody just wants to be nice and together and help each other out too, right?
Yeah.
That's the real value in it. And I find that with all trades, they're mostly like that.
Yeah.
They want to see younger ones kind of coming in and want to learn. They want to share. Yeah. They want to experience it, right? Yeah. And you'll make a lot of money.
You make a lot of money.
If you're smart about it, you make a lot of money, right?
Yeah. I bought my first house when I was 24. I had $60,000 in the bank, lived at home. I had no life because I was working all the time.
Yeah.
I'll say this, all my students know this, but, my wife was my second ever date. It's kind of hard to go out socializing when I'm working all the time. I'm working over 65 hours a week, 67 and a half hours for 2.5 years. And so I met my wife.
But you saved. And
and I lived at home. It's like I just saved, and then we ended up getting married and bought a house at the same time, and so life is.
It's a little different now. The landscape, a tiny bit different. The way
my students, the ones that are buying, they're actually buying like apartments and stuff, and then they rent it out.
Choose Dahl for your plumbing needs and discover the peace of mind that comes with their unwavering reliability and exceptional service. Experience the Dahl difference and join the growing community of contractors who trust in their expertise and rely on their products. Check out Dahl at www.dahlvalve.com and on social at dahlvalve. So they're investing.
Yeah.
Which is smart.
Yeah. So that's another big thing too, that because of my business background, I'll actually tell them about the money and invoicing and how to, do a quote and things like that, but also what to do with the money. So my way of doing it was that I would take 2 paychecks. One went straight into the bank, and then the other paycheck went to pay bills or a car or a little bit like that. And all of my vacation pay also went straight into that was like a separate bank.
Yeah.
Right. So because there's temptation. All of a sudden you're making all this money. Oh, let's buy this. Oh, let's buy the fancy car. No. I bought a $4 Hyundai. That was cheap on gas and 4 doors. So the insurance.
2 places. Yeah. That's as simple as that.
And now that I'm older, I can enjoy. Right. So now I buy the nice cars and I live in a nice house and I travel and I have a granddaughter and that is really the nice perspective of things. So,
but it's nice that you're teaching the kids this as well outside of just the plumbing trade. You're educating them about the plumbing life, right?
The plumbing life. This is where now the father comes in. I have all these little hats. So I have.
How many kids you have?
How many? I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters. Okay.
I have 2 daughters. One daughter, Rose. She lives with her husband in Australia.
Okay.
Just talked to her yesterday. And my other daughter, Robin, and her husband and my granddaughter, they're in the military, and they're stationed in London, England. Okay. So I'm very, very proud. And that's the other thing too, is that I will say balance, and because. Yes, the money was great. That's why I always say money was good. But I was very, very fortunate to, hit it off with my wife and, the second ever date. And we're celebrating next year our 35th wedding anniversary.
Congrats.
So I was really lucky to meet my wife. But my daughters, they gave me that balance. Because at one point it was like work. And all the money was great, but there was no balance. So when I met my wife and then we had kids, the one thing I really enjoyed was just simply coming home, lying down, let the kids, and I was playing Barbies, and all the stresses of work
gone,
because the kids didn't want to think about the trades and plumbing or how my day was.
How many years did it take you, Robert, to realize it can't all just be about work?
Actually, when I met my wife.
Okay.
So I met my wife when I was 21, 22, something like that. Then it was sort of like, because, I'm an only child too. So I like to share things. I want, when sometimes it's just that communication. You heard a good joke, or you had a little bit of a bad day, or you had a very good day. Something really exciting happened. And then you go home and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
So now, I go home and like just now, actually my wife's at her work right now, and I just noticed we had the radio off and we were talking the whole time.
great.
You know, so that's the nice thing is the balance. And that's why I say that if the money was great, don't get me wrong, but I've enjoyed the fact that I can go around to the different things that I've done. So being a plumber, having my own company, now being a teacher, which is very, very rewarding. And that's the most happy thing, is that the trades gives you options, which is one of the reasons why I take my students to the CMPX show, is because you might not be a plumber for the rest of your life. You could go into a sales position. You could work for this industry.
The technical side of things. Oh, there's a lot of advancements going on.
And every time I go there, it's something brand new. Yeah. Something I've got, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Right. So when I do send my students, and I remember the one story where there's, these big island bathtubs. What do they call it? Freestanding bathtubs.
Yeah.
Right? And this looks like one big, huge egg. But if you notice, there's no drain, right? There's no drain. You can't get onto the drain for the bathtub because it's built in from below.
Oh,
Right. So in the old days, we'd have to make a hole in the ceiling.
And work everything from the belly.
Put your P-trap there. Yeah. Well, all of a sudden now, there was this one drain. I forget the name of the company. And it looks like a big floor flange.
I know what you're talking about.
And I met the owner who developed that.
Drops it in place.
Yeah. Now you just put, which I did in my own house. And I'm going, brilliant. So my students all saw that, right? Well, wouldn't you know it, maybe, a couple months later, the plumber comes in with my student at co-op, and he said, I just wanted to tell you, I just saw something brand new that I had no idea existed. And he just wanted to take a look at the shop. So, when you're in the field, you're thinking about today and what's going on, right? But sometimes my students will bring something new to the table.
They're on social. They're seeing it before it comes out. Then they want to try to figure out how to learn it.
Yeah, yeah.
So they can use it.
Yeah. And then I have my students doing like a green plumbing project. And that's another thing where, like a power pipe or hands-free faucets or geothermal units or things like that, tankless hot water tanks. That's something where I learned something brand new, right? So I have my students do a project. Sometimes they do a PowerPoint. And then, the students go, I had no idea. So what happens? They bring that information back to the plumbers or during co-op. And every so often, it's like, this kid's on top of it. You know? He knows the new things, not the old, right?
Well, when you were in plumbing, though, you were still doing PACs, right?
No,
you were all copper up there?
It was all
you were still copper.
It was.
Or he was transitioning?
It was, yeah. Okay. It was, I'm not dating myself, but I am. But ABS was relatively new. It was only out there for about 10 years. My father's subdivision in Malton, that was ABS drains. So it came out like in the late 60s, ABS drains.
I was just asking this before we got recording today. Is Canada the only ABS country? Because America's all PVC, right?
Yeah.
We're PVC below grade. We're ABS above grade.
Yeah, right.
But are we the only ABS country?
I have no idea.
I have an assumption that the UK is ABS, or it could be copper. I'm not sure. Those who are listening, they're probably going to send me DMs now and just let me know.
UK, yeah.
There is that, I don't know if it's a rivalry, but between the US and Canada, the US is all PVC.
Yeah.
Right? And then we're ABS above grade.
Yeah.
So, and it was just coming in when you were doing that at that. I've only ever known ABS. I've never known.
So, and then there was a lot of copper. I remember a lot of copper, and then water pipe was all copper. And then it was probably the last 15, maybe 20 years where the PEX piping came in. And then there was a piping called Kitech, which basically was a pipe that had like a aluminum.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking about. So you can shape it.
You could shape it. And
yeah, we used so it's kind of like a hybrid between copper and PEX,
but
right?
Then all of a sudden, what happened, from what I understand, the connections, the joints, they all started to leak. So they basically got rid of that technology, and then they got the
all PEX.
The all
at that
PEX,
point,
right?
crimp.
So now everything. Well, Uponor or the crimping, it's one of the two. And I teach my students both so that they have an idea.
But you were mentioning in the video there, so do the students start with copper?
I have them doing 2 projects.
Is it intimidating for a kid at that age?
Oh,
so all of a sudden, here's a torch, here's solder, Go to town.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I show them all the safety stuff
no,
and
totally,
what to do
totally.
and what not to do. Right?
Yes.
My body is one big lesson plan.
Yeah.
From all the burn marks and cuts and things
My
like that.
body is one lesson plan.
Oh, yeah.
No, I know what you're talking about. It's great.
I could show cuts, and I know where I got the cuts and the burns, and me almost losing my thumb, breaking a toilet one day, and stuff like that.
It just cracked, and then.
Well, actually, what happened was that we were told as an apprentice, take the toilet, throw it in the bin, right, and then break it up. Mm-hmm. So you take a sledgehammer and you start breaking up the toilet. So I'm there and I'm breaking. Of course, I'm not wearing safety glasses. It's outside, so I just kind of go like this, and I'm banging away,
Your
right?
hand goes
and then all of a sudden I see the little drip going there, and then the next thing is I go, boy, my thumb is getting cold because there's that little chill.
Yeah.
So then I look and my thumb is kind of hanging down there a bit, and I said, "Oh, this is not good." So I don't know. This sounds silly, but I'm sure I can't be the only one. I just fold my thumb, take some electrical tape or whatever, some paper towels, electrical tape, and I go back to work.
Contractor's Band-Aid. I know.
Yeah.
And you went back to work.
Yeah. I use my other hand.
No, those things get sharp when you break them. You got to be careful about it. I've always carried them out, put them down quietly, and then just cautiously do it.
That and clay pipes.
Clay pipes are brutal.
Yeah,
Even I remember the first time I had to tie into a clay pipe.
Oh, okay.
That was lots of fun. Crack. Oh, okay. All right, try here. Crack. Okay, try here. Keep on going.
I remember when I was a kid, like I said, I worked with my father and doing side jobs and stuff. And there was a place on like Dufferin and Castlefield, and it was like a field at that time. And it was like a plumbing supplier, but it all had clay. It looked like a pumpkin patch because it was like clay TYs, clay
we're going
pipes.
way
we're going in the
back.
70s.
Wow.
And yeah, I remember that. But that's some of the things. So I'll actually have for my jobs, I've brought in my classroom old piping, like old galvanized piping that I tore out, brass piping, lead drains. I got a lead water pipe that I took out one time just to show the students
where it came,
how it came from, because they're going to see this. Right? They're not going to see PEX. They're going to see going, oh, what's this?
You'll see electricians fishing wires through those old galvanized lines sometimes, using it as conduit.
If they can get through it, because some of that old stuff that's quite closed.
Did they mortar the clay pipe? Was it ever mortared, or was it just all fitted together?
It was mortared. The fittings were.
The fittings were all mortared, right? Yeah, that's what I remember them being, right? Yeah, but. Yeah, depending on where you go, but most of Toronto, if it's an older home and hasn't been touched yet, and you're going into the basement, you're gonna discover clay.
And that's why I also teach the students. I don't go into great detail, but I do want them to recognize what they're looking at. Right. So even those, I remember the lines. There were like 3/8 lines, and they were for gas lines, and they went throughout the house because they had lamps.
They had the old lamps. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We used to discover those as well too, and I was like, "What are these lines for?"
And I cut one because they go, "Oh, I'll just take it out." All of a sudden, I hear this going, "This thing is live! What the?" So I'm running downstairs and shut off the gas, and I remember that. I was because like 99.9, they're all dead. They're just sitting in the wall.
You assume, yeah.
And that's another thing. Big thing, assuming you can't assume a lot of things.
So I love that the classroom is half desks and half. Rough framing, right? And then plus you can get underneath and get a peek of understanding of how it all works, right?
So they do the theory, and then they, like I said, they do those 2 hand projects, and then by then I'm already talking about water piping, the water mains, hot, cold, 3/4 and all that, main building shutoffs, curb stops. So I'm kind of like moving up in that direction. So by the time they get up to the workstations, they'll be roughing in for, let's say, a 2-piece washroom, just a water pipe, and I give them certain heights and dimensions. And then by then I start getting into the drains. And then they're roughing in the drains and the venting. I'll teach them about that. And they'll actually hook up a sink and a toilet. And usually that's quite satisfying, not just for the students, but even the parents. And sometimes it's sort of like, good job.
They probably want to go home and change the toilet.
Yeah,
and just give it a try, right? Like, let me do it. It's time to change it. This salmon-colored toilet here has got to go. Let's get another toilet in here.
Oh, I remember the old days, in the 1980s.
Green.
Actually,
cream, yellow.
Yeah. Those toilets were in the 70s, and I would say that was brown, yellow, green, pink.
Brown, pink. Yeah, I've seen
pink,
green. I've seen
pink, blue,
yeah,
purple, yellow, and like a reddish pink type thing. And then when we hit the 80s, everything went gray.
Yeah.
So everything was like white and gray. And then you had like the darker Twyford. I think I'm saying the name wrong, but it was like black with gold. Everything was gold.
Yeah,
brass.
I remember that.
So sometimes you get like a black toilet with a polished brass.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then after that, it went back to white again.
And now it's pretty much white now, but unless you go matte black. But are you giving the kids a heads up that technology is just really being infused into all the toilet products right now? Like you're getting computers into toilets now. You're getting shower systems. It's no longer just a bathtub and a toe tester and a hand shower, a head shower, right? Yeah. It's like it's computer. Well. It's insane now. Are they coming to you with all this stuff, or are you kind of?
No, actually, when they find it with that green plumbing project. Because a lot of it is water saver, right? You use water saver toilets or water saver, and then as they're doing that research, because I give them kind of like a guideline as to what to start looking for, or gray water, and so some of this gets pretty fancy. And one of my students was talking about they were looking up a portable gray water system, but one that you put underneath the vanity.
Okay.
So basically what happens is that you open up the faucets on a sink where the vanity below, that water would go into like a little filtration system and then fuel the toilet right next to it. And once that was full, like a little float, and then the rest of it would go out into the drain. And it was like, I have never seen that before, but yet it makes complete sense, right? So it's like a little portable gray water system that you put underneath the vanity.
And it's constantly replenishing the toilet, ready to go at any given time.
Yeah.
Introducing the new Aircool 26 RCA, the quietest, most powerful, and most durable generator with 109 amps max power on liquid propane. Equipped with the first-to-market low-oil shutoff switch, it's the quietest 26 kilowatt on the market with a 56 dB at exercise. The 89% larger ceramic fiberglass insulated muffler and acoustic foam insulated inlet duct deliver the best sound quality on the market at exercise. Its larger muffler reduces back pressure by 62%, eliminating restrictions in exhaust to optimize pressures for peak performance. Its CH1006 engine with 20% higher compression ratio and variable ignition timing optimized by fuel delivers the most power in its class. It's also equipped with advanced engine tuning with an air cleaner assembly relocated directly over the carburetor, which optimizes airflow to deliver enhanced performance. When it comes to reliability, nothing beats a Kohler home generator. Get the facts and find your generator at Effect Electric Limited on IG. It makes sense because the amount of water you need to make a toilet operate.
Yeah.
You don't need a huge tank there underneath, so you can pull it off that way.
So you can use gray water for, let's say, floor drains, urinals, toilets, and bedpan washers, which I don't think they have anymore, but...
No, I don't know how that works. But I just figure that since they're all over social and they're understanding the tech that's behind plumbing and even other trades, they got to start getting themselves well versed. I mean, like I can only imagine them grabbing the manual of a product nowadays. Back in your day, it was probably a 2-page manual about installing a certain product, whether it was a tub, sink, toilet, or whatever it was. But now it's like a booklet. And then there's a side booklet attached to it. Then there's all these other, ups and downs. And that's a little intimidating just as a kid getting into the industry that way.
Yeah, but it's I mean, really, the bottom line is installing a toilet's installing a toilet. You still need the bolts. I mean, the only thing that I would say different with the toilets of today is how they have that separate piece there that you actually, it's like a big plastic piece with the P-trap, the ring, and they have to install that first, and then they take this big thing and put it right over.
So you can have the hidden bolts, or it
so
could be skirted or something like that. Yeah.
So, but I mean, water still requires, it still needs cold water, and I've seen some of the toilet seats where they have like a built-in bidet type idea, but
But that's just another line that's spliced off of your toilet supply line anyway. And now, toilets are asking for GFI grounded receptacles because now you're doing heated seat. Like that's all becoming code now, right? So it's like, why is there a plug behind where the toilet flange is? Well, the toilet requires a plug,
Yeah.
requires power, dedicated power. I know, it's insane. And then all same with the shower systems. You got computerized going. And Alexa's attached to shower systems now, so you can communicate with shower systems, which is great for this younger generation because they'll embrace this stuff like nothing.
Yeah.
They'll be like, okay, so where are we going to put the modules? Where are we going to put the router? Where are we going to put all this stuff?
Yeah.
And you're like, you're a plumber, man. What's going on here?
Yeah.
But that's where it's going.
That's where it's going. Yeah. So
You ever get into, I guess, in the like course wise, how far are you getting in? I mean, you're doing level 1, level 2, but how far are you getting into flow rates and pressures? Not too much of that. That's going to get on the job site.
Yeah.
That's going to get with the real on site.
we don't want to, like, I don't want to, like, scare the kids.
It's going to be intimidating.
Right? Because you got to remember, they're starting off that they know nothing.
Yeah.
I've had students from, let's say, in academia, high school, and they've won skills, right? And they start off not knowing what a pair of pliers, or they don't know the difference between a Robertson and a Phillips and things like that. So I'm starting from like literally square one.
Wow.
And also too is that, I said earlier in the other podcast, I said you can be the smartest idiot in the world. So meaning that, you have to have the right attitude.
Yeah.
There's the work ethic, there's being polite, there's no swearing in my classroom. I want you to get a good night's sleep. And, sometimes they're in it for the money. And I look at it and I go, how do you get a good night's sleep? Like I've seen some jobs where it's been so butchered, and I just thought I never. So I tell my students, you want to do a job, get a good night's sleep. You don't have to want to worry about it. Some of the other things is preparing to be a good apprentice. So in other words, anticipating, get to, see what that plumber wants to do. That's what makes you valuable on a job site. You're not there to waste time and money.
No.
You're there to make my job easy. You're getting paid for it, and you're there to make me money. And that's really the bottom line.
Do you ever think, Robert, that I saw last year, I was invited to an electrical supplier, and they had VR systems set up to teach up-and-coming electricians. Mm-hmm. So they were able to wire receptacles, switches, a panel, run conduit in there, all VR. You ever think teaching the trades is ever going to get to that point where it's all going to be just VR or AI?
No.
Basically, replacing you. I don't think that it should. I don't think it will. No. But I'm just assuming that tech is coming in and that might be the case, but I don't think it is.
I can't see how that
you need that.
Because, there's like I have 40 years experience. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm turning 60.
No, but it's the job site experience that
Yeah.
is added to your teaching experience,
Yeah.
which you need both of those to speak to the kid.
Yes. So if my lesson is, let's say I'm doing a lesson on hot water tanks. Half my lesson is based on what I see in the book, what they learn in the book, different type of hot water tanks, and the other ones are the stories about hot water tanks. And I got like 2 or 3 stories about hot water. So you give me an item, I could probably come up with a story.
Yeah.
The other thing that VR's is not going to replace is that feel, that sense. When to stop turning that wrench, or I call it my bells and whistles. I have a lot of sayings. Your bells and whistles. So and that's a big part of it is being safe, right? You just gotta anticipate. You gotta know. You gotta know when to stop. And I tell my students, you got your sight, you got your hearing, you got your smell, right? So let's say if a B tank is not closed 100%, you're either going to smell it or you're going to hear it going off, right? So there are some of those small intangible things that you forget it. That's not going to happen. Maybe the theory side of things, but on the hand. I mean, it's always funny seeing my students carrying pipe for the first time. Well, because the pipes are going like this. They don't know how to
hold it together.
You can't. There's no video that can kind of show you that. Or
you got to grab it a bunch and then learn, and then the next bunch.
Go through a door, lifting up. I remember I had a couple of students trying to lift up a bathtub. I'm like this going. I couldn't even make this thing up. I wanted to take a video of this. Like they just simply that there's no TV thing that's going to teach.
Tell them one day they might get the opportunity to have to carry a 800-pound cast iron bathtub up to the second floor and try to figure out how you're going to do that.
I've carried it down.
Okay, so you didn't. This is an old one.
Yeah.
So you didn't break it before you could.
No, because they wanted it reglazed.
Oh, they wanted it reglazed. That's why.
All right.
I carried it up.
Yeah.
And the way I carried it up is I actually made a custom box out of plywood, so then I could have 4 people carrying it like a casket, so to speak, right? And it was like a casket, basically.
Yeah, I remember.
It wasn't easy.
No.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, those old school ones, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, a plumber might come across that, right?
I remember. I got another story there. I had it was actually not far from Central Tech, and this lady wanted her bathtub taken downstairs and put it in the yard. I thought,
like a flower bed or something?
yeah, something like that. Okay. That's what I thought, right?
Yeah, okay.
I said, okay, so I had an apprentice, and taking it down is not that bad. You just have to watch out that you don't start tearing apart the walls, right? So you slid it down, put it in the backyard, and I said, okay, so now I want you to figure out how can you make a pond out of this? And I'm looking at this going, what are you talking about? I said, well, I have what are those big fish, koyas? Or
Kois?
Kois or something like that?
I don't know.
And there was, the big fish, right? They're like big goldfish.
Okay.
Okay. So, and we were talking, and I said, well, technically what you could do is we could put a small little circulating pump right where the waste and overflow is.
Yeah.
So in other words, the water goes in, circulates, and then it was coming out of the overflow.
Okay.
That's right. I actually got that thing working. So that was the most creative thing I've ever done, was basically inventing a way of putting together
a pond out of a tub.
Yeah. And she ended up it was kind of fun. Unfortunately, it didn't last too long because the raccoons also, I guess, enjoy fish. So I found out the following summer. He says, "Yeah, that didn't work out too well." Yeah, the raccoons
they're just like, this is great.
Yeah. Oh, look at that! Here, come on, buddies. So that was one of the more creative things I've ever done.
But at least the technical plumbing side of it worked. It totally made it work.
It was actually kind of fun. I had a little pump.
It's a good use of an old tub.
Yeah. And it's always water always has to run, so that pump was always having to go. Right.
Have you changed your teaching style since you started becoming a teacher to today, or is it basically kept the same?
Have I changed my teaching style? I would probably say no. I'm about the same, to be honest. I'm a little less stressed, although there is stress. But when you're a first new teacher, you might want to make sure. And I have hindsight, right? So I get to see what works and what doesn't work. I don't assume. I've been surprised many times where I say, yeah, that student's not going to cut it. And then next thing you know I was caught off guard, and that student did very, very well,
Well, was it something that they did, or how they?
No, it was sort of like a lot of times it's like just simply their background, just they're newly immigrated to the country. Their English is not necessarily the best. And it's hard life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a breakfast program, or at the school has a breakfast program, and we give them breakfast in the morning, and the students are eating that breakfast. Right? Some of them are getting up 5 minutes before they have to be at school, or sometimes the food is not there. So I've learned as time goes on, never to assume, I guess, right? So that's one of the things. And then again, just experience. I know what works and what doesn't work. I'm a lot more patient. I'm a lot more patient now than I was when I first started teaching. I thought, oh boy, I was going to make everybody into plumbers, and I learned that, you don't have to not be you can be successful but not go into the trades or being a plumber.
Yeah.
Right. So
there's other avenues that are associated with
and that's
it.
the reason why we do that CMX show, because maybe you want to go into this area.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to work behind the desk. I have one good story. His father was a real estate agent, and my former boss's father-in-law, he actually bought houses, fixed it up, and then renovated, and then sold it. So he actually was a renovator / real estate.
Yeah. Okay.
So I told that story to my students, and it turns out his father was a real estate agent. So he took the plumbing course, I think he got his plumbing license. And guess what he's doing now? He's actually doing that. He's just flipping homes. He's renovating it. And if it gets a little bit too complicated, or let's say electrical or something like that, he'll hire somebody. Yeah. And then he sales it. He makes the commission, and things like that. So
there's lots of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunities. I wanted to ask you, sometimes when the kids that have been in your class before are the graduates and they're working in the industry and they come back, they coming back around breakfast time?
Do they come back in breakfast time? Yeah. No, actually, when a lot of my students come back, a lot of them are going to George Brown College.
Okay, so they're going to that course as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they during their level 1, level 2, or whatever, and so on Fridays, memory serves me, they have a test on Fridays, and the day ends at around 1 o'clock.
Oh.
And then I have my students starting to text me and saying, "Hey, are you around Friday afternoon?" And in many cases, we get together and then when I know that they're showing up, that's when I have them do a little, presentation in front of my current students. Because, I've gone through it all. I've gone through apprenticeship and all that type of stuff. But there is something to be said about having somebody that's close to your age and they have just finished it.
Yeah.
Right? So
they'll have a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, they'll have a different perspective.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, one of the biggest things is just simply the sacrifices. You're not going to have the same amount of friends or the same friends, right? Things change. You get new friends.
Yeah.
You can't go partying on a Thursday night or something. There's going to be some.
Well, you can. It's just going to affect Friday.
Exactly. And when you're on a job site, you not only have to be there physically, you have to be there mentally.
The risk, the dangers, because
absolutely.
The machinery that you're using. Are they, the kids that have graduated are working, are they kind of, you guys having a conversation on the side?
Oh, sure.
And then all of a sudden they're saying, things are changing. Are you hearing almost like your own voice in them?
Yeah.
Because it was back then. Because we've always said it. Everybody says the next generation comes in. This generation is not, there's not enough. We need more. They're not good enough. Yeah. I wasn't like this. Was I like this? Yes, I was like this. Yeah. So it's just a cycle at that point, right?
Yeah.
Any business, especially in construction, requires us to know what's going on at all times. How can we avoid being dragged down by the bits and bytes in order to have that time to build the business and take it forward? If we don't have the right tool to operate our business and are doing things manually instead of digitally, we end up being held back. Now, I'm not talking about making sheets on Excel or texting instead of calling. I'm talking about whole new levels of doing things digitally. From knowing that our employees clocked in at the right place and time, ensuring our employees know the job they need to do, tracking what's going on in the field by receiving live forms or checklists, these all can and should be done digitally. Not to mention your younger employees who work and live digitally expect to get that in their workplace as well. And if this sounds like fiction, it's not. Just switch to Connect Team, a platform built for managers and its many different capabilities to help you truly manage your business and give you back time to focus on what you need, while giving your employees the work experience they expect to get in 2024. Connect Team has a free plan and a 14-day free trial. Try them today by checking out the link in the show notes.
So the only thing that I will say that would be nicer, and I wanted to bring this up today, was, a lot of times they said, if you don't know how to read and write, go into the trades.
That used to be the same.
My hand, I'm good with my hand, things like that.
Yeah.
What I would like to see is having a student who is getting 80s and 90s in school and then going into the trades. That we don't see much of, right? And I wish we would get, the trades would be an option, because when you're getting 80 or 90, may it be society or the parents or anything, go off to university, right? And I like for those students to then say, I think I'd like to go into the trades. And if they go into the trades, you don't have to be unplugging toilets or getting yourself dirty. You could actually run a business. You could run a company. There are a lot of, you could be a teacher, something like that. So I wish that's something else I've been kind of fighting for.
But it's funny how they will be making 80 or 90.
Yeah.
In a few years once they get into the industry, right?
Yeah.
It is that. I totally see it. I see what you're talking about, but those kinds of kids that are getting those grades, they're probably being groomed to get into other career options, right? they're not even considering a trade at that point.
They're not even. And that I think there's consideration, but I just think that there's so much. And again, I have nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with universities. I mean, it's fantastic, right? I'm just saying that in that conversation, going into the trades is also a very, viable option, right? And I wish, and that ever since I became a teacher, and it's still today, at least if they could have that choice or that options or put that in the back of their mind, right? And that's something I'd like to see.
Your experience, Robert, with the 20-something-year-olds, you got these kids that are just getting out of high school now. Is it primarily the money that's driving them, or finding a career that's going to...
Money.
It's money, yeah? So it's not about finding a career that's going to make them happy.
No. I try to sell them on that, right?
I think there's more value in trying to find a career that's going to make you happy versus the money, because that whole cliche, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if you love the trades and you love being a tradesperson and doing that, then you'll make a lot of money and you'll be very happy at that point. Yeah. But it's the money. At that age group,
they're all talking about the money.
So then how are we losing out when we're competing against other 80, 90% kids, and they're being told, let's go down the university route, let's become a doctor, lawyer, accountant, or whatever, all these other careers that will give you six figures after you've paid your six figures in school debt?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is the parents and just society in general.
Really,
go to university and do this and do that. I mean, I think the average age of a first-year apprentice is 28 and a half. That's
Really?
the average age of a first-year apprentice is 28 and a half. Yeah. And you know why? Because a lot of them have graduated university
and they don't
like work,
or
they don't like what they're doing.
And then they try the trades then.
Yeah.
And then they go that route. Yeah. I mean, I just had someone recently reach out to me, like, I want to start from the beginning possibly. I want to get into electrical.
Yeah.
And he's in his 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, you're right. You're totally right. It's just because they pleased, I guess, the parents. They went to the university route. They gave this a shot, but they're not into it.
They're not.
And now they keep on seeing the trade, the industry, and they want to give that a go. So it's 28.
I play with Legos every day. I play with. I tell my students that I admire them. I admire my students and the programs that are running out of Central Tech. And I go, you've narrowed down that choice. I get to play with my pipes and cut pipes. I get to play with a torch and fire. I mean, I'm living the dream here, And on top of it, I get paid to learn, and I have no university debt when I finish. So what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
What do you think the government should do? What else can they do? I mean, we've got the programs, the OEAP. We've got other pre-apprenticeship programs. We just had Dan Guest in here, and he's launched Trade Smart College, which is great. So it's a 4-month course there, and it's in Hamilton. Hopefully, it grows and it starts going into other cities as well. But I mean, what else can we do or the government do to attract these kids to come into the industry?
I think they're trying to. I mean, I know that they're promoting. I mean, they're putting money towards the trades, and different. I know the unions and the schools that you were just mentioning about that. I guess promote. I mean, I'm trying my best.
Yeah.
But, sometimes it's a little bit difficult.
It just feels like you, and we've had other teachers on the show as well, too. It's like you guys are lone wolves. It feels like you guys are standing alone sharing the message when there should be a lot more of you sharing the same message.
The government, I mean, we have another program here running out of Central Tech, Accelerated OEAP, where they now combine basically on the field, and they get level 1 training, and they get it from the local, like in particular in carpentry, local 27, or they're affiliated with George Brown College or Humber.
Okay.
So, and a lot of money goes towards that. So that's pretty good. And the students right now they're getting boots, and they get some tools, and they got like myself trying to promote and teach, and then they get some teachers from the George Brown or Humber or again local 27, and so the money is getting there. Just trying to get more students. Right?
Do you tell the kids what to expect from employers? Or do they,
Oh,
yeah, like give them an idea of what
Oh, yeah.
employers are going to be like towards you and what the trade really is like
Yep.
in the real world? It's not like how it's portrayed in sort of TV shows and things like that. It's not like all the glitz and glam of social media. There's hard work, there's dirty work, there's satisfying work. You're telling them they're getting.
I tell them everything.
Yeah.
You know, tell them that I always say the first year apprentice, basically, if you had
A broom in here.
if you had a garbage can somewhere, you'd be just right underneath there on the picking order.
Yeah.
You're going to be yelled at. You know, you're going to be snapped at. You're going to be told to sweep up or dig holes and clean and drive here, do this and do that. But sometimes I look at it as also being a little bit of a test. You want to see if you have thick skin, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to come in when it's raining outside or there's a snowstorm? Well, you still go to work. You know, there's none of this. Or, you know, going to work when you're sick. That's, you know how many sick days students have, right? And I'm looking at this going, man, I didn't take a day off. You know, I'd literally have to. Well,
There's a lot of sick days in students.
I mean, yeah, you know, that's the one big difference. You said you understand. You don't stay off sick.
Are we talking like more than 9, more than Ferris Bueller these days, or what? Like, is that what it is?
Well, it seems like that at times, but it's one of those things where, you know, if a kid's not feeling well, then, you know, you stay at home. But in the real world out there, if you're not feeling well, you still go to work, right?
Yeah, especially if it's your business.
Yeah, especially if it's your own business.
Because you don't go to work, you don't have any money, you don't have no revenue coming in.
Exactly.
That affects that week, month, year.
So, I mean, they have all the right to take off those days, and you know, if they're not feeling well or whatever, they'll take that day off, or they've done something they shouldn't during the week and they took that day off, or even actually, you know, one of my students, you know, he was really tired in the morning, and I said, well, what time did you go to bed? And he said, well, around 4:00. I said, you went to bed at 4:00? A lot of my students, you know, they go to bed. Not my students, but in general, students, they don't go to bed at 9:30 or 10 o'clock like I do. You know, it's you go to bed because I got to go to work the next day. So I go to bed at 9:30, 10. I'm in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30. Lights are out. But you know, when you're in high school, and you know, we were all in high school.
Yeah,
at one point.
we've all done it.
We've all done it. But that's the reality check that I tell my students is that be prepared. You're going to work at 6. You got to be there at 6
This
o'clock
is in
in the
high
morning.
school.
This is not high school.
This is real life.
Right? The attendance. If you're absent one or twice, can you imagine being, you know, absent a couple of times and
You're not
fired?
You're fired, yeah. You're not back on the job site.
So here at school, you show up late. You know, they show up after 9 or whatever. I mean, my first coffee break was at 9:15. I always remember the coffee truck coming around. That's my first coffee break. Never mind showing up. So that's what I try to teach the students too, that be prepared. You got to be there first thing in the morning, physically, mentally, every day. Not just once in a while or when you feel like it or whatever. But that's my job. My job is to tell them this is how it is in the real world. Right?
Do the kids, Robert, like, especially downtown, I mean, with Central Tech being where it's at Bloor and Bathurst area, when they get out of the school and they start working in the industry and they're walking around and they walk into an establishment, coffee shop or whatever it is to get a coffee or get a snack or something like that, and they're looking like a tradesperson, do they feel the stigma on top of them?
Of being a tradesperson?
A blue-collar worker?
I don't think so.
No? They're feeling proud that they've learned this skill. They've gone to this school that's right there.
Yeah.
I'm working in this neighborhood now. I'm changing. I'm doing all the rough right now. I'm running all the lines right now. I'm waiting for the inspector to do a test here. They don't feel any of that. That's wiped over them. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Once they get into it,
they don't feel it.
They don't feel that.
That's
It's
amazing.
just to sell them
To get them in there.
into that. But once they get it past
That stigma door is there.
then once they get into it and they get a feel for it,
It's not there anymore.
That stigma's gone.
I used to love walking into places with my workwear. And sometimes it was dirtier the better. I would have a better feeling.
Oh, I got another story for you. So this was the true story. And I think I was engaged to my wife at the time. So I thought I'd buy her something really nice piece of jewelry, right? So I had a fair amount of cash in my pocket. Let's put it that way. And of course, I can't go home because, go home, get changed, and then go to this place, right? I'm going to get into trouble, right? So then she'll find out, hey, where are you heading off to, right? So I go and buy this stuff on my way home from work, right? So I'm not sometimes I'm not smelling or looking pretty, right? But I had a large amount of money in my pocket. So I go up, and this was in Yorkdale, jewelry place. And I'm there, and I'm looking around. You think one person would come up to me. Nobody. So I thought, okay. So I walked out. I tell that story every year to my students. And I just say, that person just lost a big commission because you assumed. Yeah. And that's something you bring, I brought into my teaching, right? You cannot assume how, I remember scrap dealers. Oh boy, like some of them. But yet the guy was buying a new Cadillac every 2 years. The real big, huge one.
Oh, I got a story. Like I remember doing one of my first homes, and it was like 100-plus-year-old home. So we were cutting out all the copper.
Okay.
And I at that point I was doing renos, and it was a lot of like, okay, so the plumber just take it, right?
Right.
And it would just be buckets, and then I would start learning, like all the offcuts to electrical, they would give it to their grandkid or their son or something like that. You strip it and you kind of compile this bucket of copper, right? So and I'm like, everybody around me is doing this copper thing. I'm going to do this one time, right? So we were cutting out like 3-inch copper.
Oh, stack, okay.
Stacks, right?
Yeah.
My Sprinter was full of copper. I go to the scrap.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they open up the back doors, and then, one more guy shows, another guy shows. More guys come out of the woodwork there. All the guys are looking at all this copper in there. And I'm like, why is there like a surrounding of my van going on here? What's going on? Then we get a weighed, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, I'm with one of my guys, and we go into the scale, we weigh it, and we go into to get paid for it.
Right.
Nearly $1,000. And she gives me the number, and I'm like, what? She goes, why, were you expecting more? I was like, no, that's good. I'm like, that's fine. That's great. And cash right there, gave me the money. And I was like, wow. Now I understood why all the electricians and the plumbers and everybody kind of compiled and kept all this stuff. And there's a lot of value in there. And that wasn't even pure clean. Like there was still some
like number one, number two.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I was still shocked on that amount there. And like, you're right. You walk in there, you just assume everybody that's in there and they're bringing all this metal coming in there, but don't assume.
I also remember taking the shower in the showers. The liner was made out of lead.
Yeah.
So you would take that out. And that was pretty heavy.
Yeah. That was very.
We brought that to the scrap dealer, and we had a metallist next to the shop, and he used to use it for bullets.
Hey, architects and builders. Do you want to stand out from the competition? Fraser Wood Siding has your back. Fraser Wood Siding is a leader in pre-finished wood siding. They manufacture beautiful pre-finished wood siding using only the highest quality PEFC certified Canadian softwood. Fraser Wood Siding is available in 17 profiles and unlimited colors. Fraser Wood Siding is available in 17 profiles and unlimited colors. Supplied by the global leader in paints, Sherwin-Williams. Whether your design taste is classic, contemporary, conservative, or bold, they've got you covered. They'll gladly match the color of any paint manufacturer and send a sample on an actual piece of Fraser Wood Siding in just a few days. Visit their website at www.fraserwoodsiding.com and reach out about your upcoming projects to benefit from their industry-leading lead times. Fraser Wood Siding, get inspired. You would fabricate bullets from it?
Fabricate bullets. Now, again, we're going back to the 1970s.
Way back.
Right, 1970s. But, he was a hunter. So he would go up and you would hunt, and so we would use those lead shower pans so he would make his bullets.
So he would melt it down and then cast?
Yeah, he did something.
He must have formed it or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. There's no reason to throw it out.
No,
there's a lot of value in that garbage. That's when you're remodeling everything. But I guess it's going to eventually get to the point where you're going to have rentals maybe 20, 30 years from now, taking out all the PEX or something like that. There's no value there. There's nothing value at that point, right?
Except if you see me driving around picking up a toilet on the side of the road, or because that's what I did, for at the beginning of when I became a teacher. I see this perfectly good toilet or a bathtub, and
to install.
Put it in the shop.
Oh yeah, in the shop. Yeah.
So
makes sense. It's still the same theory. Like you don't like the bolts are there, the supply line's there. How heavy it is, it's all there, right? Yeah. It's great for the kids.
Yeah, and as long as it, like I said, as long as it's hands on and everything runs and everything's working, man, there's that glow in my students' eyes. And like I'll take pictures. You know, I have some pictures I'll show you later, and you know, of a shower stall or a rain head coming down, and they go like, oh, this is great, you know. Or when I had that whirlpool going, you know, that whirlpool still works. So
it still works,
and they go, they had never seen any of this. A lot of times they don't see stuff like this. We take it
for granted.
We take it for granted.
Yeah.
But you know, you should have seen it when I had that whirlpool running, you know, and somehow accidentally the jets were facing up, you know, when I filled it with water and then I plugged it in. Yeah. Gotta have a little bit of fun with my students.
You ever, well, I was just thinking April 1st, you ever like get the electrician teacher to come into your class and you go to their class?
No. Sometimes we'll, well, again, this is something that happened to me, you know, they tease me and all that. So, I mean, you know, I have a bucket of sparks and stuff like that. We'll tell the kids, okay, go to the electrical room and get the bucket of sparks, right? And actually one time I came across a blue handle wrench. So I have a red wrench, like most of the wrenches are red, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got this blue one. So I tried to convince my students that this is for cold water. And and you know, they're looking at going,
putting it down, give me the hot water wrench.
What are you doing? Give me the hot water wrench. Like, come on, we're working with hot water. So
did they bite? Did they bite?
Sometimes.
They bite?
Yeah, okay. Sometimes they'll bite or I'll make them think. But, you know, or the left-handed screwdriver, right?
Yeah, that's a classic one.
But again, I'm preparing them.
It's going to be worse.
That's what's going to happen when we're going to have a little bit of fun on a Friday. And
if they're smart enough and creative enough, they should come up with some really good comebacks at that point, so they can be prepared for it, man. I think we covered a lot. I mean, I've always been a fan of the school. It's amazing what you're doing. You're literally shaping the next generation of tradespeople coming into the industry, and I bet it's the biggest kick for you to see your students in the industry contributing and working, whether it's behind the counter, on the job site, navigating sales, running a business. Like there's so many, like you said, so many angles to this entire industry. You don't have to be swinging, you know, turning the wrench all the time. You could be growing a business and teaching other people as well too. So,
no, I'm very fortunate. I have a great family, a great daughter, a great wife, and then I go to work. And yes,
and you have fun.
Every job has a good days and bad days, but on the all in all, it's a very, very rewarding career. So, and I actually, on that note, I actually have one of my former students who's in second year teachers college.
Oh, wow.
So he wants to be a plumbing teacher. So I'm looking at retiring in 3 years. So maybe there'll be that
crossover right there.
There'll be that crossover, and then we'll continue on.
That'll be amazing if that happens. Yeah,
it's really cool. But yeah, he's second year in teachers college. So.
Robert, we got to do the 12 questions. I appreciate your time coming back in, and it was a blast meeting you at the doll event that we did.
Thank you.
And having a bunch of plumbers there and a few GCs there just hanging out and talking shop, which is amazing. I loved it. I got to plan more of those things. It's always great to do that. You ready for these questions?
No, but go ahead. I had no idea that there were questions.
They're not hard. Don't worry. Yeah, you're the student. I'm the teacher. What is your favorite construction word?
Bells and whistles.
What's your least favorite tool?
Least favorite tool? Shovel. Because if there's a shovel, it requires me digging. So
running lines.
I look at it going, yeah, no.
It's true. Speaking of which, I guess, are you teaching all the kids that they're going to be using Milwaukee? Pretty much.
Well, I have the angle drilled and the sawzall is Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So
they'll get used to it. They'll be red. They'll be having packouts, laying out all their fittings, getting it all organized, and then they're going to start getting into all the Pro Press.
Yeah, actually,
it's a whole new world now, right?
Yeah, and I was very surprised to find out that they're doing it a lot in residential. I always was under the assumption that it was more on the commercial side.
It was, but I guess it's gotten to the point where it's cost effective now.
Yeah.
So you get in and out of that job a lot faster with the ProPress instead of, kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah,
I'm not surprised by that.
About that.
What construction sound do you love?
The sound?
Yeah.
I like hearing the chatter amongst the tradespeople. That's something that I miss. One thing not on the sound, but the smell. I miss the smell, and every so often I look over there if there's a house being built and, I smell that wood and I go, yeah.
Rainy day. Snowy day, like summer day.
Yep.
I know the smell. What's your favorite beverage?
Favorite beverage? I would say a nice glass of red wine.
Domestic or foreign?
California. Pinot Noir. It's easier on my stomach.
What's the worst and the best thing about construction?
I think the best thing about construction, I would say, is the satisfaction of seeing your job. That's something I really miss. Like actually starting it from scratch. I just did both my washrooms and my kitchen, and I go, I miss those days. Tearing it apart, and then at the end of the day, you see this finished product. In teaching, I don't get that. I get that when they come back with my coffee and they tell me that they just got their license. But I got to wait a little bit. Where in the field, I saw that instant satisfaction.
Favorite curse word? I don't
really swear.
You don't swear. Don't worry about that. I like that you actually don't allow any swearing in the classroom.
No, I don't want. Let's say, put it this way: I don't want to be hypocritical.
Yeah.
Because let's say a cyclist cuts me off while I'm on the road, I'm going to let one loose. Okay. But I never swore in front of my daughters. Yeah. Never swear with my wife. And I hold the same value that I have with my students. So you're going to set yourself a little bit standard. So, ethics is a big thing that I try to teach to my students.
But you warn them that once they get on a job site, there's a few four-letter words that are shared.
Oh, absolutely. But you also got to know when to turn it on and turn it off.
Yes.
Because you could be on a job site, and true story, you could be on a job site where everybody's swearing left, right, and center, and then next thing you know, I could have a service call in Bridle Path, and you can't swear.
Yeah.
Right? And one time, there was these painters on a house on one of my jobs, and I came there, and I'm noticing all these paint cans, and the grass was full of paint and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, what's going on? Like, what happened, right? So I go in, and the owner's wife was there, and the daughter. Well, it turns out that they were working. The daughter, who was like a teenager or whatever, she was in the bedroom, studying. Well, the painters didn't think anybody was home. So now all of a sudden they're doing dirty jokes and they're swearing and this and that. Daughter freaked out and called dad. Dad gets home. Fired them, kicked them all out, started throwing paint cans out the front door.
Yep.
And so that's why I try to tell my students, you got to know when to turn it on and turn it off.
Yep. Right? It's true. It's a good one. Favorite vehicle in the entire world?
I think right now the car that I'm driving, I absolutely love it. The Toyota RAV4 Hybrid.
Nice.
The gas is it's very smooth and has a lot of power. So.
What do you miss from your childhood?
What do I miss from my childhood? No responsibility. In other words,
a lot of accountability.
Yeah, but I mean, like sometimes I remember when you're a kid, you just want to go out and play.
Yeah.
Play tag, play on go down into the creek, just
discover.
Now it's like Saturday. It's not a matter of, I get the day off. It's like, okay, what do I have to get done during the next few days? Maybe shopping or this or that, right? So not just waking up and going, what should I do today?
Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt? Plumber, teacher, what else now?
Would I like to attempt? Mm-hmm. Okay, don't laugh, but
no.
I actually would like to go back to something I did for a little while, and that was being an extra on TV shows and movies.
Really?
Yeah. So actually, I was an actor, or not an actor, but I was an extra for a couple of years.
I knew a bunch of extras. I knew because I used to be a grip, right? Yeah. So I used to be on set, and we would be setting up lights, and I'd always just chit chat with all the extras. Like my always opening line was, "You come here often?" Like you guys are always here.
Well, there was do you remember the show called Due South?
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, went there. I did an episode.
Okay.
And do we have time here?
Yeah, of course we do.
Okay. So, true story. My students will always say, "Sir, you're telling that story again." So, anyways, I
didn't hear it.
and I'm a bodyguard, right?
Okay.
So I'm a bodyguard, and I'm right next to the curtains. And it was a show in regards to like a G8 summons, and there was this really big, huge guy that was upset, and he was going to kill the president of the United States, right? So at one point, they hold out the guns. He said, "Okay, you're it." And they had these two security guard or like FBI agents, right? Well, this guy is like 6'5", 300 pounds, and these two actors, they were actors, and they were about the tall. And the director goes, cut. Like, this is not going to fly. I mean, look at this. I mean, his arm is bigger than both of them combined, right?
Yeah.
So he looks around and he says, "You, come here," right? So he said, "Are you a part of the Actors Guild?" And I said, "No, I'm just an extra," right? He said, "Well, we could use you because you're about as big as this guy. He's a bit bigger, but it's a little bit more realistic, right? So we need you to go in the back and sign some paperwork, right?" So I said, "Oh, okay, great. This is kind of cool." Right, I get to hold a plastic gun, and so my name became Johnson, and I'm going, hold on a sec, I know what happens to Johnsons on these shows. I watch Star Trek, there's always that guy with the yellow shirt, and all of a sudden there's only 3 of them. So anyways, so what happened was they arrested, and they said, "Okay, come," and so I gave him a bear hug and tackled him, and then I, put his arm, but his arms are so big, you couldn't put the
bracelets. Yeah.
So he just held it like that. But so I have my little fame there. So I've always.
So you can always get back into it.
Yeah, I met my retired geography teacher from high school. He was there, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm retired now, and I'm an extra on all these shows, and I work, once or twice a week. I make some cash, and I just love it." And I remember that, and I thought, one day when I retire, I think I'd like to do this. So
that's funny you bring it up. I just saw a casting call for Guillermo del Toro's new film, Frankenstein, where he's shooting here in Toronto, and they're looking for people to look like 18th century kind of shipmates and beards and long hair, and they're asking for a bunch of people. So big production. But that's going on right now. I don't know if you can play hooky from school for now.
No.
What profession would you not like to do?
One profession that I would not like to do. That's kind of hard to ask.
Nothing that you don't want to do at all?
Oh, one thing I wouldn't want to be an administrator, because I see the amount of work that they do, like the principal and the VP, and I look at that and the stress level, and I just go, no, that's just you have to be a very special person to
handle all that,
to handle all that with the parents and all that. So that's something I do not want to do.
Last question: if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at those pearly gates?
You didn't waste your time.
I
gave you a chance. You have one chance at this. It's not like, okay, you know what? Next time I come back,
I'll redo.
So I didn't waste his time. So he gave me the opportunity to be on this earth. And I have a beautiful wife. I have 2 incredible daughters and my granddaughter and son-in-laws. I've tried things, which was something for a little bit. My parents were German. And so I've always wanted to see if I could push myself. And that's one thing that trades have allowed me to do, is that I always have a fallback. So if the teaching thing doesn't work out, I can always have my own company or go back to doing a service work, but just, conservatively optimistic. So I've wanted to try it, but I always had a fallback. So
thank you, Robert. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, chatting more and learning more. And say hi to the kids. I hope that they listen, or they'll listen to this episode at least and check it out. But it'd be funny to come across them every so often around the job site. That happens every so often. Like they know of me or they know of the show because they're listening. So I appreciate your time and coming on the show and sharing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. We're out of here.